Hi, and welcome to View. Thanks for joining me. I'm Kelsey Lynn Mayo, the exhibition manager here at View. And I had the pleasure of curating Ripple and Roar, The Wonder of Water, just a few weeks ago. And I had the great pleasure of working with Sandy Gellis, who is our juror of a selection, who is a sculptor based out of New York City, who works in collaboration with water and nature as a medium. And she will be talking first tonight, and then we will move on to Diggory, who I've also been able to work with throughout this process, who is the juror of selection, who is a painter of messy vitality from water scenes onto her own scenes in our studio. So tonight she will be talking about some of her reactions to the show, but also her selection of why she chose some of the awarded pieces. And also, I just wanted to mention at the end, we will do a Q&A. So there is a box at the bottom of your screen where you can enter any questions you have, and then we will answer those at the end. And also just a kind of housekeeping thing. When we're looking at the screen, you may see the screen go black when they're switching over between images, just because they're actually physically moving in the gallery. Travis and his team are wonderfully walking around the gallery with the video camera. So this is all happening live in the gallery. And then Sandy and Ann are from their respective studios. So I think I'll start off now with you, Sandy.
Okay. Hi, everybody. And I want to say one thing about water in particular, because I've loved water and been afraid of waters since I've been a little girl. And I had heard this a long time ago, and I just Googled it before I did this, and I Googled is water on the planet, this planet Earth, finite? And it is. I had this big long list of it being finite, which really drives my passion for water, because it's in everything. Without it, we wouldn't be alive. And so I really feel passionate about water, always have. Okay, that's it. So when I look at this, when I was jurying the work, I felt like I was going into different pathways from different artists. You know, sometimes I didn't think about that subject that way. And so I was just kind of being taken on a trip, which I loved, actually. So how do we do this now to get into the actual images? Okay. Now, do you want me to say what the name of the image is and things like that?
Yes, that'd be great.
Okay, so this is Jonathan Pray, and it's no DAPL, no dapple. Okay, I don't know what that means exactly, but what interested me about this one is, number one, I love seeing groups of people, and water is like where most cities are built around, you know, and it was just so intricate and kind of crazy. And then there's water in the background, and it's like every body of water has a little town or a little group of people, or it's a passage way into the world. So I just was struck by this enormous, intricate painting. Okay, that's all I have to say. I loved it.
And I do know that one is the Dakota pipeline that it's talking about.
Okay. I didn't know what that was. Yep. Okay. Now this one here, because I have to keep my big glasses on. All right, this is Renee Noel Chessman, Water and Rolling Ponds. This one just felt like a little fragment of things floating in water, and just it looked like a really nice fragment of water, very colorful, very beautiful, just very fluid. I was very attracted to that. So kind of a beautiful one. the size, I'm surprised at the size of these things too. Okay, now the next one is Jerry Wayne, Puget Sound Evening. And this I thought was so formal and so authentic, and just felt like I had spent a lot of time in a houseboat in a marina. And this felt like an industrial place made beautiful, but of that same environment. It's like a whole other world to be near the water that way. And this captured that in a very beautiful way. So I liked it. Okay. Yeah. Great intricacy. All right. This one, I broke out laughing. This is Abigail Henthorne, Bodies of Water, it says. When I saw it, I thought, okay, this is a whole other medium. And it looks like a person kind of floating or swimming in the water, many waters maybe. And I just broke out laughing when I saw it. It was so, it kind of, I found it very exciting to dare to do this. You know, it just felt very alive and unpredictable to me, and therefore happy. Okay. What's that? Now we're going to another place and another group. Okay, so that one. All right, that's Fathon Flesher, and it's called Deluge. And this it reminded me of floods and rapid water and things clogging up, and like maybe a beaver dam or something like that, but just blocking flows, but accumulating in a very natural way. It's interesting to see the windows there too. I don't think the windows are part of the painting, are they? I don't think so. Anyway, but it's just under the water. All of the things that accumulate in little crevices along the stream or the lake or the river. I also think that all waters are connected. So that's that one. Okay. Next one. All right, so that. I'm a sucker for these. All right, this is Krista Makovina, and then the fog lifts. I happen to love these amorphous, foggy places, and this has great depth and just, it kind of brings you right into it. And I like that kind of an environment. I like being in that kind of environment, and I thought it captured it really well. That's that. This one, okay. This is Beth Atkinson, Buttermilk Falls. I believe that this one was some kind of a woodcut. It doesn't have the material. I think it was a woodcut, and
Yes, it is, Sandy.
Linoleum cut. Yeah, I was fascinated with translating water into wood and carving, and it was like a whole other medium that I wouldn't have easily even ventured near, but it was done so beautifully and really kind of conveyed the water in a it's not an ideal way, but it's a really kind of rugged way. And I think water becomes very rugged very quickly sometimes, you know, it felt right to me and exciting, actually. Yeah, so I like that one. I think there were a few of them. This, I think, was the most exciting to me. So I just limited myself. Okay. Ah, I see what you're coming near. Okay. I think it's John Wittenberg, I believe. And it also is another material, which I didn't know what material it was actually, but it felt like very muddy water and flowing, and just sort of captured a moment that was not settled and moving quickly and carrying things with it that I didn't know what. And it was interesting to me. Okay. Okay. Now that one I have to find it.
This is Washed Away by Caitlin.
Yeah, I needed something. Okay. There is always something buried in the sediment. And depending on the way the water flows internally, it gets washed away, it gets covered up, it gets buried. It just talks about a whole other dimension of a visual experience. You know, what's buried there, you only see part of it. So it's you wonder about it, you're fascinated by it. It just intrigued me. Yeah. And there's always something buried in sediment. Okay. Now, this one is Danielle Eubank, Potomac V. And this is kind of like a fabulous shorthand of reflections and of water movement. It looks like a Tibetan notebook where things are being documented, but they're not stable things. They're ever-changing things. And this person just caught that moment that in 2 minutes would be a whole other series of patterns and images. Yeah. Nice one. Feel like I'm seeing all my old friends. Okay, now this one is Kelsey Lynn Mayo, All Signs Point North. And to me, this one went deep into the depths of an ocean. And it was talking about luminescent, like jellyfish and just little fish that they're so deep that there's no light and they make their own light. And you concentrated that light. Even the color is the same kind of concentration of light swimming in deep places. Yeah. I was once in a beach in Puerto Rico, and the whole beach, it was at night, and the whole beach was luminescent like that. Everything was kind of glowing, quite incredible. Okay, let's see what this guy is. All right, this is John Tronzer, Gran Canaria, 425. I didn't quite know what that was, whether it was mud or whether it was things floating after a storm, or after some season that was just kind of whisking by, it felt complicated. And I liked its complication, and I liked its color variations, and just abstract movements, really. Nice one. Okay. Does it say what material that is? Do you know?
I don't have,
I
it says
can't.
digital photography, but it doesn't, I'd have to read the explanation later. I'll let you know.
Okay. Grand Canaria, yeah. It was catching something that was hard to retrieve. Okay. Now. Okay. All right, this is Bob Fur. And it's called Eldfell, Eldfell. And this felt like lava underground in the ocean, lava spilling out, hitting the surface and just pouring out, just no room to no room to settle, just pouring, coming out of a whole other place, which is water based as well, inside the earth, and then just coming out into the open, making a whole other space in its progress. I mean, these are fantasies to me, because I have no idea whether this is really true. But anyway, okay, so this one, okay, it's okay, yeah. This next one, Nicole Martinelli, Essence of Life, Water Equals Life. This one, it's so hard to capture that moment in water in a photograph. And I think it's a photograph, and if it's not, it's kind of an amazing other thing. But it felt like it just I just could go with that flow and the ebb and things turning around in it, and just it felt like pure ocean and water to me. And I know how hard it is to capture that. So I was very impressed with that one. Yeah. Yeah, this one.
It was on to
They were all familiar to me. I could talk about any of them.
the main first wall. Yep.
Oh, that one. Yeah, that one was that was also a surprise. And the material that it was executed, it was bubbles and water and just odd and wonderful. And it was large. I didn't realize it was as big as it was, but I like it being so big. It kind of needs to be that big. It was very inventive.
And this
kind of
piece is
exciting. Yeah.
Joy Moeller Mikola running out too.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like it a lot. Caught with stone, objects, flow, wool. It's probably all wool, right? Is it?
Yep, it's all felting.
Yeah, okay. Nice.
Oh, and silk.
Okay, running out. Okay, nice.
Well, thank you, Sandy, for that. Is there anything else you wanted to say when you were selecting?
I found it a really exciting experience. I felt like I went on many trips. I mean, I could keep going with other images that just took me different places. So my mind was just kind of going where they were, and I chose a lot that made me either surprised or amused or just took me to different places, which I like, rather than seeing things that I've seen many times before, you know, as far as imagery went. And also when you look at slides like that, you know that you're missing a lot of the visual experience. So I guess, you know, when it came through that this was something that I didn't quite know before, I just went for that. So I think a lot of the pieces that I did pick were my reacting to them in that way. So for me to really select just water, I remember a couple that were just very watery and kind of beautiful, but I wasn't sure about them. I wasn't sure what they were going to look like in reality, you know, so I kept having that conflict about that.
And just
So,
to give context, when the juror of selection is choosing, they're actually looking on a screen because there's
right,
so many entries, they can't be shipped here just to be shipped back if
exactly,
they're not chosen. Yeah.
exactly. So, yeah, I thought I'd have a hard time selecting, but before I started, and then I got so into it, I was having fun and just kind of going on these little trips. So that's that.
Great. Thank you, Sandy.
My
And
pleasure.
if you'd like to start.
Sure. What I wanted to pick up was just some general comments about the show first, in terms of, I think what impressed me most about the selection, and I loved the variety of the selection, was just an amazing range of media. When you picture a show about water, you know, we have preconceptions of what
Right.
of what a water show would be like. And I think a lot of people coming to the View to see the show will say, what this is water, or oh, that is water. And I think it's a marvelous set of juxtapositions in the show. To me, it was like walking into a room where everyone is speaking a different language. There's ceramic, there's felt, there's photography that looks like painting, there's painting that looks like photography. It's just an amazing mix of things. And, you know, even within one medium, if you had photography, there were many versions of what can photography do? How do you do with motion? How do you do with mystery? So that was impressive to me. And I actually had a hard time picking. And so when I was asked to give a first, second, third, I said, gee, can I give 4 or 5 honorable mentions? Because I just couldn't limit it to
I
that.
can understand. Yeah, no, that's how I feel looking at them there.
Right. So what part of what you're going to hear from me a couple times tonight is the importance of actually seeing the actual works. I had the advantage of actually seeing the works and seeing them in person, and that's where you get a sense of scale, a sense of the details. You have time to really savor it very slowly. The problem with a big show, sometimes you say, oh, water, but actually to zero in on one is a very nice capability. So you'll hear me mention that a couple times of those kinds of juxtaposition. So maybe if we could go back to that first image.
The city, the little.
There we go. No, this one. So this actually was my first prize that I gave. And part of it was, Sandy, you talked about surprises. This is probably the driest medium you could use. It's fabric. It's, if you were to touch it, it would be just a very soft fabric. And to me, that juxtaposition between this is water, this is representing water. I've never looked at froth in the same way. I've never, I had a sense of gravity of how this was falling down and disappearing. And I think when I was looking for what to give prizes to, they needed to invite me in some way, surprise me in the same way Sandy was talking about. they had to show me something new about water, not didn't have to, but they often showed me something new about water I hadn't thought about. They also taught me something about making art that I hadn't thought about, and in a way that was very much tied to a personal expression. So as you zoom in here, these are little, twirls of fabric there. I assume that's sort of the silk part. And so it was a fascinating sense of gravity on that one. So that's to some extent why I chose to pick that particular one for the first prize. So yeah, so at that phase, you can actually see the surprising forms there. So, and sitting next to it is an honorable mention. And it's a little hard to see when you're there in person. You get a sense of, this is a ceramic piece by Elena Hall called Low Tide. And the impressive part to me was in terms of how water settles. I hadn't really thought about how water settles into a hollow. And the way the ceramic does is it looks as if the blue, this is beautiful blue that's in the brown, that all of a sudden flows and puddles. And there are these separate puddles around the edges. And it just gave me a very different sense of what water can do and how you can represent a very tiny fragment of a huge sense of what the water in the world. The swirls almost looked like plants, but they were water. So it was just a very impressive. So that I gave that an honorable mention because I just was really impressed by that balance of a new way of looking at water and materials. So that was quite nice.
Looks like a tidal pool.
Yeah, it's called Low Tide. So that was pretty much it. And then I think we'll go into the other room. Is that for the small painting? I don't know if we're going to go.
Yeah, they'll just have to move over. So we'll give them a moment.
Okay. So a lot of the paintings that the artwork that I looked at, people took the idea, I'm going to make this just be 95% water, and that's really going to make it be about water. And what I found different in the one that I selected for a third prize, it's going to take us a while to get there. You get to see the whole show. This is kind of fun.
It's a big gallery. Get to an idea of how big it is.
Yeah. Okay.
Forward to it, right?
So we're now getting to what this one grew on me in a funny way that I thought, well, that's, there's just a little tiny bit of water. How can this really be about water? And then I started thinking about it, and the sense of what water does for us is it brings us reflection, it brings us light in a very dark world sometimes. It provides some beauty in the midst of sort of this darkness. And this was a storm that's coming in. This is Greg Klein's The Warning. And I wasn't quite sure whether the storm was leaving or coming. But to me, I was surprised that with that little bit of water in the painting, it could be about water, and that sense of magic that it can infuse the whole world. I know when I go out to paint on a cloudy day, I often look for water because it's the only thing that's going to liven up a very grim kind of light. So I was impressed by that. That one. So that was third. That was the third place in that one. So from there, he does a good job of moving around.
It's like a big game or a maze for them to move around.
And while we're moving, okay, we'll go to this one first. I was intrigued by, this is Jeffrey Wine, who actually had the photo of the harbor that Sandy liked. And this is North Pacific. And I gave this an honorable mention. Partly, I started thinking about honorable mentions in terms of images that put water in the context of other forms and set up a synchronicity of some sort we think of reflections, but I was intrigued that the water and the sky seemed like a reflection, but they're only the light is carried. The forms are actually quite different. And I like the scale of the people as being very minimally involved in this. This is like nature wins or dominates the whole thing. So there is, and when you see it in person as opposed to on a screen, screens tend to take the whites in anything and make them a little bit brighter and bigger than they are. So it's not as jumpy, I think, and when you see it in real life. But to me, that sense of the flatness of the water and the flatness of the sky and that synchronicity between the two was really quite nicely done. So that was a nice one. And we're going from here to, let me just pause there for 1 second. Let me, we're seeing a little piece of that big one that you talked about earlier that wasn't part of my talk, but let me just bring out my thought about that was it was like a Bosch underworld painting. And that's what the environmental fights are all about. But anyway, so we'll move on to the photographs that I had picked to talk about.
I had a similar thought to that, Anne, when I saw that.
Nice to hear what you thought, as well. Because,
so we're going to go to the right of this, I think, first.
okay.
To the 3 to the right. I can talk about this one. Oh, there we went black. Should I talk about this one?
Right, okay.
I'll just talk about this one first. This I had given an honorable mention to as well in terms of that sense of how the environment, how water relates to what's around it, how it emerges out of darkness. So the blacks that are in the water and the blacks that are in the stones kind of merge. You're not sure where one starts and one stops. And if you could zoom in on the very top of the waterfall there, I don't know if you can, I really loved the playfulness of those shapes, that could be splashing water. I stood and looked at those. Sandy had talked about how do you cut a wood block or linoleum to come up with water. And I didn't care if this was water or not. I just loved those shapes and how they interacted. You see them responding a little bit to the trees that are above them. And it was just a nice, when I looked at this was a language that I felt succeeded. It really carried itself nicely on that. So that became an honorable mention.
It's also a medium that I don't know. And I found it really, I thought, wow, this is great.
Right.
Not so easy to do. I know that. But
and just to the right of this are 3 that I saw. This is very hard to see because it's very dark, but that's one thing I responded to. These were not ones I gave an award to, but I paused at this. What I think is great about being in this exhibition is you really start looking at language and what is the art. The one on the very far right is Barry Lobdell's Frozen Stream. And again, the visual language in that, I didn't think, okay, this is frozen water. It was just a wonderful set of shapes and linear and dark, and that this is also a photograph. I mean, we have the photograph that was the deep sea, the shore and the clouds. This is a photograph. And then next to it is another photograph, which could easily have been a painting. It's a very dark photograph. That's good. You can actually see it better. That on first glance might appear to be a painting. And I was intrigued by the way that that darkness really took on a whole nother light. It's a hard thing to handle, whether it's a painting or a photograph, how to handle some of that. And then just in contrast on the left of it, I think on that sense of mystery. What is the medium on that one? That's that actually is a painting, I believe.
That is a painting, yep.
Right. But the idea that painting and the dark photograph next to it, to me, were of the same language. Yet one is a painting and one is a photograph. And I think that's part of the fun of seeing these shows, these artworks together in that sense. So it was intriguing to me to see those relationships. So I think I'm giving Kelsey you an honorable mention on hanging.
Yeah, no, looks very nicely, and I'm looking forward to seeing them in person. Or
right.
But I'm thinking now that it's really interesting to see photography mixed in with painting, and other materials, things, and just have it all feel equal. And
Oh, sure,
yeah,
sure.
equally exciting in a way. Yeah.
So on the next one I had on my list to talk about was the video. Again, either that or the work right in front of it. I don't know which one you're going to go to next. We could do that. That we'd stop there. Actually, that was the second prize. You want? And to me, this is my paper here. You have that, Kelsey?
Yes, I do. Just a second.
Too many people.
Aurelia 37, Virginia Bradley.
Oh, Bradley. Okay. And this was my second place award. It was intriguing to me. There were a lot of, I was impressed by the number of artists who chose what I call the water as cosmos, sort of water as this
Nice point.
like a sky, like you really said, okay, so this is water, and now I'm going to look at this a little bit differently, but it had that sense of tiny things working together. And the way it appeared to be made was laid flat and letting things flow together. So it was actually made with that sense of flowing and moving, and had little pieces of glitter in it of some sort, or at least shiny something that added that sparkle. It's kind of it's interesting to be able to see it that close. And there, I was very impressed, and the colors and the flecks of red impressed me in terms of that sense we have of water, that we can stare at it forever and just keep looking at a new part. It doesn't have to be, our favorite waterfall. It can just be a little bit of water that we find fascinating. I'm sure this is, not a specific place, but just an understanding of what water can be and do.
And also, why is the cosmos separate from water? I mean,
right. Yeah.
like,
That's right.
and I love the cosmos. Like that painting too. Yeah, I remember it.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So I guess that then in the video again was one that I gave an award to in terms of, I watched it several times, and to me, we've lost the video. You saw it before with the water washing through. I don't know why, not that one.
Buried sand.
The sand, the water.
On.
I don't know if we can turn that back on.
Looks like
The screen went dead.
yeah.
But anyway, my thought about that, and I did give an honorable mention to it, was in terms of how it made me mesmerized in the way that I am often when I'm looking at water, the sense of flow and coming back. But also to me, it looked to me like the prints in it were like some part of body print had been in there, and it was slowly being washed away. So again, it was erasing that sense of the human touch and that inevitability of just flowing and moving. We think of water as going around rocks and being in water beds, but in this case, the water was actually taking charge, and that sense of time and what. There we go. We're about to start it up again. But it's really worth coming to the gallery. There we go. So to me, they look like handprints and footprints, body prints. Who knows what it was?
Right.
And it took a while, and finally, by the end of it, it's just sand. The water has won. It has smoothed away, and there's just a very meditation that I found that I think water can provide. And this was a nice, very focused piece for that.
This artist works with body prints a lot, and the ephemeral nature of them, and
Right.
a lot of it is self-erasing. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was a very moving piece to me. Because I often think, even though my paintings are of streams and places, I think more of the metaphorical sense of it. And this I liked very much for that. So thanks for getting it turned back on.
Yeah, I
Yes,
didn't
thank you,
know it was a video, but
And
but
then
I liked it. Yeah. Go ahead.
So the last set that I chose to talk about tonight, again, we're not prize winners, but again, in terms of getting people to come see the show, these three next to each other to me was a marvelous. I sat in front of this for a while and thought about one of my experiences of water is that sense of when you have waves, there's a horizontality and then the light comes down and you're sort of playing these games of across and down and across and down. And to me, the photograph in the center was a very Zen kind of thing. It's just two pieces of grass, or well, really three, and water, their reflection, and then the water flowing. And to me, that playfulness of the fragility, but also the interaction was moving. And then when placed next to these other two, so that is Joseph Wilde Rivergrass. Placed next to these other two, the one on the right is Gabriella Mirabelli, Light on Water 2. Again, that sense of the dark that comes down in on the left, the blues that come in on the right, playing this game of back and forth and up and down. This gets a little more sharp edge than it is. It's a little softer than it shows on here. But it's worth looking at this and thinking about water and what these the painting and the photograph, and then the collage on the left does sort of the same thing, but in a totally different method.
Right.
That this was two different images cut and woven together, but I get that same sense of the water coming down and across and down and across. Really, it evoked water without being a specific place. It evoked that sense of disorientation that water can give us, but also beauty, and it sort of made me lose. I didn't have to worry about exactly what was going on. I could just enjoy the colors working with each other. So just me, again, by ending on these three, I really wanted to just think about why it's important to actually come to the gallery and see. This is an advertisement for the View. To come and actually see these works and spend time with individual ones. Think about what language have they chosen to speak? What are they saying about water? What are they saying about art? And how does that bounce off from one to the other? I guess the only other award I gave, since Sandy had talked about the large one that was the pipeline one, that I gave an honorable mention called Call to Action. That was my call to action honorable mention, that it really, when you look carefully at that one, you see all the conflict going on and various things going on with that. So I think that covers the prizes I gave.
Can I jump in for a minute, just about back to those three together? Just the photograph that looks like it's just rippling and light and dark and all of that. I keep thinking, what is that reflecting? Like,
Right.
look, there's an object in there that is bouncing off the waves and reflecting something else somehow.
I think that actually was a painting, not a photograph. But it's one of those.
Same thing, yeah.
Yeah, it's one of those that could have been either.
Right.
So.
Yeah, so I'm you were feeling a lot of things that I was feeling.
Yep, we did.
Yeah.
I will open up to questions now.
Yeah.
And while we're waiting for any of those questions to come in, I did want to mention that Sandy and Anne's website. Sandy has a new website, so she'd love if you went and checked it out. It's sandygellis.com, and Anne's website is diggory.com. And it'd be great if you could get familiar with their work, because they will be doing their own talks as well. Sandy will be on July 6th over Zoom again, and then Anne will have a Zoom talk on July 13th. And then Anne will also be doing an in-person talk on the Saturday before closing. And we also have an event happening in the gallery this Sunday. We have a musician, Ben Cosgrove, playing, and he reacts to the sounds of nature unique and landscape inspired instrumental music. So he'll be playing piano inside the gallery. So you get an immersive experience of being amongst the artwork as he plays. His music is very impressive and just calming to be a part of. So if you've had a stressful 4th of July weekend and you need to calm down, come to the gallery. And, you know, watch out for more programming at View. We do have a lot of different programs that happen throughout the summer. And we're so happy to have had you, Sandy and Anne, here.
My pleasure.
Oh, I
Happy to
also
be here.
got one question.
Okay.
How many entries did you get and what percentage did you choose? By the way, very good show and choices.
Great. Thank you. I had 250 or 60 entries, and I had to choose 70, I believe, or 80. I don't remember. 80. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, right. I was very strict to just have it to 80, but there were others that I wanted to throw in, but I just didn't. You know, I was trying to balance that out. So that was it actually was a lot of fun. But I just want to add one more thing about the galleries there. The galleries have these windows up high, but the light changes throughout the entire day, and it totally affects what you're looking at in my room anyway. But I'm sure it does in yours too, because Susan told me about having that same experience in your room. And I knew exactly what she was talking about. It's like it makes the whole thing alive somehow. It's kind of, so the light is very incredible up there. I was surprised with that.
Yeah, it is beautiful the way it bounces. In your show, it has a incredible effect on some of the pieces. And just in case anyone, if you didn't understand, there's a Q&A chat at the bottom of your screen, so you can just pop the questions in there. Someone did mention that they had a piece and they'd like to see the whole show. At this time, we can't show the whole show, but we will be putting photographs up on social media of the show.
Travis would have a heart attack.
Yeah, Travis would be like, whoa, I can't show the whole show.
There are 3 questions here. Q&A
Yep.
there, I see you.
And then someone just said thank you for selecting their work to include in the exhibition, and that they're honored to be included in such an array of amazing artists. So that's for you. Okay, great. And I just wanted to ask, when I was just going to have a question for each of you. Sandy, when you were selecting, how much was like the theme sticking in your head, or were you more intrigued by composition, by material, or the representation of water as a whole, or was it just like the pieces called to you?
The problem with me is that I'm always thinking about water. And so it's just like my language in a way, or one of my languages. I don't have that many, but water is one of them. So I didn't feel like I was in foreign territory. I wanted it to be something that was not predictable to me. I was very conscious of, like, if I've seen it or some variation on it, which was hard with paintings because you can't really see paintings in slides. You know, you have to kind of experience them. And so I had a hard time kind of just, I would get closer to it and try to see how it was painted and things like that, but it didn't quite do it. So I didn't want it to be predictable or familiar. I was looking for things that just gave me new thoughts to kind of just take in my brain and kind of play with, you know?
Yeah, great.
So
Thank you.
that I spent a lot of time doing that. Yeah, that's what made it fun. You know, once I started to realize, hey, what's going on here? So.
And then, Anne, I was wondering, because when you came in that day, you're like, oh, I don't think I can just pick 3. I have to pick more. And I was like, that's fine.
Yeah, that was very funny.
And I was wondering, as a painter, do you ever go into it not wanting to just pick paintings, or how do you separate yourself from just looking at the paintings as winners?
Um, that's a tough question. I think I end up being more critical sometimes of paintings because I know what painting can do.
Right.
So often if it's an unusual medium, I'll be drawn to it, more immediately sometimes. Oh, what's going on here? And that's why to some extent that third prize I gave to the painting, I sort of passed by that at first, thinking, well, it's a nice painting. But then I thought more about the theme, and I thought about how that water was functioning in the artwork, that I really was impressed. I mean, my method for jurying was I went around with probably about 25 little slips of paper, just putting them in front of ones that I wanted to come back and look at. So we went from 25 down to 8 in terms of, and it was very difficult because I think there were, as I said before, so many different languages about, and so many different content that it was hard to say, a ceramic against a felt, which is better. That was part of that's why I did so many honorable mentions with that.
Right.
But it was a treat. There were really a lot of wonderful pieces that people should come by and see, that they're, take the time to really look at how the individual parts of it work. I mean, in the end, the question you're going to ask Sandy, obviously the composition, the colors, something had to speak in artistic terms, and sometimes presentation, the way it was presented, how it was framed made probably a difference about, what the impact was.
Yes.
I was having a conversation with myself with each one.
Mhm.
And just kind of, like you think about it, but I had an assistant here, and so I was doing it out loud, like he heard my thinking as I was going through. And it's interesting to kind of actually say it out loud, because it's kind of like writing, you're putting it down someplace. So that was kind of an interesting experience, which I don't ever do that way. It's more in my head and it stays there. But
And I just saw the comment about the little painting that the water wasn't just in the lake. Indeed, it was in the sky. But to me, that was the traditional view of water, was just that little sliver that impressed me.
I was just going to mention that too. I thought that was an interesting comment. It just says the third choice where you said there was just a little water. I feel there's a great deal because the storm clouds were full. The cycle of water was there,
Right.
which is an interesting thought.
Yeah.
And that one dark, watery painting that I wanted to add to my group, that one, I wished I took that photograph. I thought it was just such a gorgeous photograph, and I know how hard it is to do that, so I kind of fell in love with the photograph as well.
There's a few pieces in this exhibition that I wish I had made, and that says a lot about the show, I think.
Right. Yeah, no, it did. Yeah. So that was nice.
Well, thank you so much for joining us tonight. I look forward to doing another Zoom with both of you coming soon.
Right.
And thank you all for joining us for this virtual talk. And we hope you can come visit us in the gallery, because Anne is absolutely right. Seeing these in person really helps you understand it more. And Sandy will be seeing it this weekend.
I'm coming up purposely for that, and to photograph my work more. But I really wanted to see them in person. And probably if I saw them in person, I would have chosen some different ones, I'm sure.
Yeah, it's an interesting process, the way it works with the juror selection. Sometimes they don't see the show until later, but I think for this work in particular, because there's so much detail and character to each piece, and they're all speaking on such a specific thing, but one of you said, like, in a different language, that really spoke to me, the way you described that. Yes, so please do come by. We're open every day here at View. So we hope to see you, and please pop by my office and say hi, and I can answer any questions. Okay,
Be careful of that.
I know now I'll have knocks on the door all day.
Good night. Thank
Good
you very
night.
much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Yeah. And nice to meet you.
Yep, nice to meet you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.